Welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Beat, part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Torres. I'll be your host today. We've got a good one for you this Excuse me. Let me start that over. Welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Beat, part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Torres. I'll be your host today. We've got a good one for you this evening. We have Michael Cicchini, Rotoballer, joining us today. Michael also is the author of the Out of Options Substack, where he puts out great fantasy baseball-related articles. We'll be talking about Michael's early season player evaluation process, how he uses pitcher stuff metrics, beat writer articles about Ben Rice and Jonathan Aranda, waiver wire pickups for this weekend, as well as our new and expanded mental health minute. We've got it all going on tonight. As always, I'm joined by Mike and Dave. I'm going to start with you, Mike. How's it going? How are your teams doing so far? Just tell me, man, what's going on?
Well, hanging in there. I've had a couple of pretty significant injuries, as I've documented with you guys in our group chat. Losing Langford and Merrill was really painful. Luckily, I took your advice this year from both of you and diversified a little bit, so I don't have too many of those same guys on the same teams, which is good. So far, I'm hanging in there, doing okay. Right now, in Glarf, last I checked, I was second. In Tout, I had been anywhere from first to about eighth. You know how those things go. They vacillate pretty quickly. The one thing that I will say that I'm very proud of is that our freshman baseball team here in Batavia is 7-1. We started conference play this week. We swept 3 games from Lake Park Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night. My guys are teaching me some new words. Do you guys want to know some new words that I learned?
All right, Let's do it. What's the new lingo?
It's family appropriate.
Better be. You're on a Pitcher List podcast, baby. Come on.
My guy Jace Webster tells me about aura all the time, and that I got to work on my aura, and that I have a net aura AURA. This is not like repertoire. All right, remember repertoire? Okay, right. We're not gonna go there, right? We're not doing it anymore. But I said that my aura seems sus, and I do the acronym. If you know, you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
No cap. No cap on that.
Yeah, no cap.
Right?
Has anybody rizzed you? That's my daughter. She's 9, and they're kind of getting into that tweener phase.
Yes,
I hear Riz a lot. That's like the new thing.
And my guy Mason Merritt, another guy that plays for us on the freshman team, great dude, was telling me about glazing yesterday in the dugout in between innings. So I'm learning a lot of things. I'm trying to learn how to use them correctly. And I get made fun of constantly, but I got to shout out my guys. We're 7-1.
Nice.
We're going together as a team. We're playing good defense, getting timely hits. You guys know who you are. I'm going to shout you out every time we have the podcast so that you listen and hear your name.
All right, man. That's awesome. Keeping you young, right? Keeping
me something.
Keeping you something for sure. We don't know what it is, but Dave, what's going on, man? How are you?
No cap. My aura is pretty glazed right now. And I'm doing all right.
You're looking glazed. You're looking a little glazed over, but that's the only glazed I know. But yeah, glazed, sure.
Yeah. No. Things are good. My teams are. I'm still in the middle in pretty much all of my teams, but I like to exercise patience this time of the year. So
yeah.
That's I'm just playing the waiting game on a lot of things, but it's just reminding myself of that. That's the hard part.
It's tough, man. Like we talked about this in the first week, just looking at the standings, and obviously still, we're only 3 weeks in, and the standings can change so much in a day, right? Or if you have a pitcher that gets blown up, all of a sudden you're just going way down the standings off of that one outing. So yeah. It's tough, man. I try not to even look too often because I'll drive myself crazy. So yeah, my teams are, it's all over the place. It really doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
I mean, you start to get a little bit. We're now 3 weeks in. You get a little bit of an idea of, all right, this team really, this has potential to do something. And I think it's still too early to make any kind of broad declarations about a team at this point, just like with regular baseball, right? Like the Braves have gone off to a horrible start, but nobody would be surprised if they're in first place by the end of the year.
It's a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
It is a marathon. It's a grind. And I find for myself, I've got to constantly remind myself of that. But let's get to our guest, the man of the hour. Like I said, we've got Michael Cicchini here with us. Michael is a super sharp guy, fantastic writer. Love following his work at Rotoballer. Really enjoy reading his Substack. Again, it's called Out of Options. I've never really heard, I don't know if Michael, you've been on other podcasts, but I haven't heard you on any. So I really wanted you to come on with us because I think again, you put out really great content, and really happy to have you here and be able to chat with you. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks, guys. No, this is my fantasy podcast. I guess it's my podcast debut. I used to do speaking and I used to be a lawyer, so I'm kind of used to speaking, but I haven't had to do that in a while. So I'm like, I'm a little rusty. Am I going to sound okay? But I really appreciate you having me on, and thanks for the kind words. It's cool, when you start something, because I'm pretty new at this, and you're not sure if anybody's gonna ever pay attention. Like the first time you start tweeting about fantasy baseball, it's like 3 impressions, or and you don't even know if that's just like accidental as people scroll by, like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. Appreciate being
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So happy to have you on. I really, your writing is really good. You've got some really sharp opinions. So I'm surprised, honestly, that you haven't been on other podcasts, because you definitely deserve to be. And yeah, I know what you're saying. Like when you first start, it is like you're tweeting into the void. It's just kind of. I remember the original name of my Twitter account was Torres Talks Baseball. And I don't know why, like one day I'd been kind of like lurking on Twitter for years and never really did anything, just would like follow other people.
Mm.
Well, that's not creepy. That's not creepy at all.
Oh, totally creepy. I'm still, it's still a little creepy. But I remember one day I was just like, yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna make my own thing and see what comes of it. And I remember my friend making fun of me. He's like, "What are you doing? Like, what, you're just tweeting? Like, nobody's even looking at this." Yeah. I mean, it's just it's cool when people start, actually paying attention. And yeah. So anyway, let's get right into it. Michael, my first question to you is, I'd like to know more about the leagues that you play in, what formats, and we just talked about how we're doing, and we take it with a grain of salt, right? We don't have anything definitive at this point, but how are you doing so far in your leagues?
Well, yeah, like you said, Chris, it's tricky because there are some teams where you just know you don't want to look. Like,
Yeah,
I have a few Tanner Bibees, and I didn't play him the first weekend because he was sick, and we had to get the lineups in, and I'm sure that was true for a good number. At least I know some people. And he was really good, and then I put him in, of course, the next week, and then it was a disaster, like 7 earned. And yeah, so you wish you could just cover up, like when you're looking at your teams. I don't know if there's a way to hide the standings part
there
of it.
is. So I don't know if you play a lot of NFBC.
These are NFBC, yeah.
Yeah, so there, and I didn't even I've played NFBC for 5 years. I didn't realize there is a button on the right where you just click it and it hides the team. So
Oh, really?
there
Right.
is, yeah.
Well, I needed to hide just the standings part, not the team. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well, right. It's part of it, shows the team and the standings go with it. But yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, I played. So for years and years, I started playing fantasy in the 90s. One of my first kind of real jobs, quasi-real jobs, was at a telemarketing place. And it was very interesting. There were a lot of strange and, amazing characters, good and bad. And we did a football. Somebody was like, "Yeah, we're going to do this fantasy football league." And I don't even know if I had my first like Yahoo or email account, and we had to do it all out of box scores. We did a lot of box scores.
The good old days.
I drafted Barry Sanders, was my first round pick. But
nice, good pick.
but yeah, so and so for years and years, I just kind of played casually, and then I got into some home leagues with football and baseball.
Mhm.
And then I was playing just kind of mostly Yahoo head-to-head stuff for years and years and years. And then as I got, other things in life were kind of taking up a lot more energy and time. And as I got more into uh, baseball again, because as a kid it was my favorite sport, and so as I got back into it, I got back into playing the fantasy game more, and then I'm listening to more podcasts and people, you'll hear Paul and Justin mention NFBC all the time on Sleeper in the Bus, and I was like, oh, well, let me check this out, a couple years ago, and so I'm newish to it for sure, but that's mostly what I play now. So I have I did a bunch of gladiators. I had one that was in the overall for like a week and a half, was number one in the overall, which was cool.
Mhm.
But that one slipped a little bit. I have another one that's doing well. I do a bunch of the 50s. I have a couple DCs. I have a standalone and an OC, and then a home league that's like Yahoo. So
Got it. Okay.
it's like 20 some teams total when you add it up, but only 13 that I have to manage, I guess.
Only 13.
Only 13, only 5 are fab, I guess, is how I
Oh,
should.
okay, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not too bad. So,
Yeah.
all right, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. I want to get to your work, and I was looking at an article that you put out last week called "Panic or Chill," and within that article, you were writing about stabilization points for various fantasy baseball metrics. So, at what point do we look at a metric and say this has some signal to it? There's actually some, usefulness in looking at this. So, I know it's another week past when you published the article, but can you tell our listeners a little bit about that? Like which metrics at this point have reached or are close to reaching their stabilization point, and that we should be paying attention to right now?
Yeah, it's not many, which I think people probably intuitively know already or understand. It's all small samples, and from what I've read about it and studying a little bit, it's stabilization's a little bit of a misnomer or misleading. It's really more about confidence level or reliability level, as you kind of said there.
It's not black and white, right? It's
It's
not
not.
like,
It's
oh,
not
that's
like, well, like a good example is Gabriel Arias, who's gotten off to a hot start. He has 59 plate appearances entering today, and the point that's understood to be kind of meaningful for strikeout rate is 60 plate appearances. Well, it's not like after his first plate appearance today we can say like, aha, he's got a 30.5 K percentage, and that's predictive. But it starts to get more and more reliable, and we can kind of look at it and have a little more confidence. So even though that's a high number, that's a little bit down for him. And the projections are saying that he's probably going to improve there anyway. And this early, that's kind of what you should probably fall back on. Those are bad X and so forth, have it at like 28% for the season. So strikeout rate is 1. At this point, depending on the hitter, most of them have put, 50 batted ball events is usually needed for barrels, exit velocity, launch angle. And a lot of guys have reached that at this point. There's a few that, there's guys that take a lot of walks or platoon players and so forth who haven't. But let's see, the ground ball and fly ball rates, that's a little bit more. We need like 80 balls in play for that. So that's probably a couple weeks away. So I wouldn't freak out if somebody, for example, is putting an established player maybe has a high ground ball rate right now. I wouldn't be like, extremely worried about that. We need about 120 plate appearances, so twice as long as we have now for walk rates for hitters. And then, there's other things that are going to take half or longer of the season. So really it's strikeout percentage. Some of the hard hit metrics I think are starting to become useful. But things like home run rate and ISO, that's a little bit longer. That'll be 150, 160 plate appearances. So yeah, it depends on the specific metric. For pitchers, the Stuff Plus models can start to and also with hitters bat speed. Now we have bat speed, right? And that is said to kind of become reliable by 10 swings, which of course most players will have by now. So average bat speed is also something we can look at, although I'm not sure always about the connection yet between that and results, or even with barrels. There's guys that sometimes swing really hard, but at bad angles or don't square it up. And you know what I mean? There's,
Yeah. I was actually, speaking of that, I was watching a segment with Vinny Pasquantino. Did you guys happen to see that the other day on MLB Network? Because he's someone who's actually raised his bat speed this year. And that was, it wasn't really a conscious effort to raise his bat speed, but he worked on just like getting stronger in the off season.
Yeah.
And he was saying like, yeah, my bat speed looks much better this year, but I'm not sure. I mean, he's gotten off to kind of not a rough start. And he's like, I'm not sure if that's really my ace swing though, because it's not as controlled as it used to be. So it's still, I just want to throw that out there because like the whole bat speed thing just seems kind of like, we don't know what to make of it, right? Like, is a player increasing his bat speed necessarily an indicator that like he's now a better hitter? Or I don't know.
I think maybe sometimes guys will miss more when they're swinging.
Right. And that's what he was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And a guy we're going to talk about later, Jonathan Aranda, his bat speed is, it's like 70, I think, which is
not great.
About average or below average even. But he hits the ball really, really hard. So there's some element of the impact and strength that is transmitted into a swing, I think, that isn't picked up just by the raw speed. Now, a lot of the guys that are really strong and hit the ball hard are going to have high bat speeds, but I don't think it's always a 1-to-1.
Right. Okay. So I just wanted to recap what you were saying as far as the stabilization point. So K percentage, I think you said about 60 plate appearances. Right. Not that it's like, oh, this player is totally different now, but we can start to look at that and have some level of confidence about that, that K percentage being predictive moving forward.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then ground ball rate, what was that again? How many batted balls?
So both ground ball and fly ball is 80 batted ball events.
Got it. Okay.
So like, let's take a guy who swings a lot and plays a lot. Alec Boehm has,
I think
it's,
I'm so done with it. I'm so done with him.
Chris can't talk about it.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know. No, he's an interesting case actually for some of this stuff, because it's like, what do we take out of the higher strikeout rate? And everything looks pretty normal actually with him, but he's got 56 batted ball events. So I don't know, so he's not really at the point where we can say for sure, a higher ground ball rate is going to stick. Of course, he's always had
he's always kind of had that. Yeah.
That's always been kind of a problem with him, is elevating, but we could give him, I think, a few more weeks, unless he gets moved below the 9 spot, which I guess is the bench, right? Like he gets moved down the order because he's just not producing. But yeah,
that to the spot where I was when I was playing Little League. That's once he gets to that spot, then I think we have to give up.
That's we all reach that point as we age at some level of baseball, right? It's like, okay, I was really good in 7th grade, and then it's like,
I wasn't, but anyway, no,
you're
forget about it. Anyway,
but yeah,
okay, so
and then I think barrel and exit velocity, that's 50 batted ball events. A lot of guys have reached that already. I think most of the regular players have reached that. But again, that's going to be more reliable as we get more of those. So some of the outlier ones, you wouldn't want to just say like, well, Ben Rice is going to have a 25% barrel rate all season. but it's a good indicator. He's going to have a high number. He had a high number last year too. So.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And then there's pitcher ones too. If you want to, I don't know if you wanted to.
Well, we'll kind of talk about that with the next question here, because in the article you released a few days ago called "Trusting the Robots," you started it out by saying, stuff models. What is one to do with them? Do they actually matter for fantasy?" So, based on your findings, what would be the answer to that question, Michael? Do they matter?
It's yes. I think they are useful. I'll say a couple of caveat or kind of introductory points about it is that both of the guy that developed the bot model now works in the Cleveland Guardians front office, and Max Bay, his name's Cameron Grove, by the way. Max Bay, who developed Stuff Plus, I think did more of the technical design of that with Saris. Max Bay works for the Dodgers. So those are two pretty good pitching orgs. So the fact that these guys created these models, I don't know, it's meaningful to me that real baseball teams have hired them. But right. I understand also that there's skepticism of them because you'll see these numbers sometimes that are really high and the results aren't there. And so a lot of times as you follow the great players, like I know, Chris, you're in the Rob DiPietro Patreon and Discord, and there's a lot of great players in there. And, there is some skepticism about it because there's not always a one-to-one. And also the model, like Stuff Plus doesn't tell you what the projected ERA should be. Like it'll give you a number and it's like, well, this is above average or this is a standard deviation above average, but it doesn't tell me, should I expect a 3.3, 2.9, 3.7?
Yeah. What's
the strikeout rate? So I think that part of it, translating it, is a little tricky, or not always clear. So I kind of use it. I've always kind of used it more as, because it stabilizes quickly, like 80 pitches for Stuff, which is like one decent start or a few appearance, 2, 3, 4 appearances for a reliever. I will look at it sometimes for, as one factor in, is there something here with a young player or a new player? Or like I was looking at the Reds bullpen this offseason, and because I didn't have any faith in Alexis Diaz. And so I wanted to figure out, well, who's potentially going to step into that role. And the fact that Tony Centillan, that's right, kind of jumped out in the Stuff metrics was one element, along with the fact that he had an insane K- walk and strikeout percentage. And so, I think it's useful as an input. I don't try to put a ton of weight into it either. And then the thing that I've kind of taken some guidance from is Jeff Zimmerman, who writes for Fangraphs and writes The Process, which is an indispensable book, I think, for fantasy baseball. He did a study for the new appendices that he released this year for The Process, and he looked at a variety of Stuff models, and then he tried to find correlations to strikeout rate, home run rate, BABIP, the things that we care about that kind of more directly affects fantasy stats. And I think he went in with a lot of skepticism, and his introduction to that part of his book says that too. And he found that they're pretty useful. So in like shorter, once you get about a month into the season, 4 or 5 games started, 5, 6 games started about, for 1 month into the season, the stuff, like the bot stuff, Stuff Plus, and Pitching Plus predicted K percentage, home run rate, home run per 9, and was it what? Oh, no. K percentage, home run per 9, and ERA, actually. Sorry, I forgot about the most important one. So ERA, K percentage, home run per 9. The bot was actually the best in his study, had the best results. Pitching plus was really good, and stuff plus was really good. But then, of course, the caveat to all of this is K minus walk was really good in these things too. Like the differences.
So is it really adding that much? Right.
Right.
Right. I think it's, yeah, exactly. I think it adds something. Like I go and check it more now than I would have a year ago, let's say, because of the work he did, because it did perform better. They're not giant margins, but there are margins there in terms of the predictiveness. And those are things, obviously, we care about strikeouts, we care about earned runs, we care about home runs. So, yeah. So
I always struggle with that, man. Like there'd be like weeks where I'm all about it, like I'm digging deep on this pitcher's bot plus stuff, or not bot plus, it's just bot stuff. And the stuff plus, and I'm like really into it, and then I'll be like, this doesn't do anything for me. Like, let me just look at K minus walk, and I feel like I just go back and forth real quickly, and then I got to take a break. But Mike, Dave, what do you guys do with that? It's all on Fangraphs now. For anybody who's wondering, scroll to the bottom of a pitcher's page. You can find all of that information. But what do you guys do with that when you're evaluating the pitcher? Are you looking closely, or are you just looking at the K minus walk or XFIP, Sierra? Where do you go?
For me, it's K minus walk. Really, okay. I like to see how many they're striking out, and how many they're letting on base, and I prefer that actually over K minus or K per 9 as well.
Right.
Because it's a better indicator of what they're actually doing. As for stuff plus, I like what you said there, that it's not really an indication of what it should be. I find it more of an indication of what he could be. But there's so many other factors to take into place. Like you could have a great pitch, but someone makes some great contact, or you're in a stadium where that pitch should have done something and it doesn't break. So it's more or less. I like to use it mainly just as a reassurance for, I like this pitcher because of what he's doing, and oh good, he's got this going for him. But I don't really use it as a way to pick up a player and say he's gonna be my guy because of this.
Right. Well, just real quick, like an example would be Jackson Jobe of my Tigers, right? Which I mentioned in that article. If you just sort stuff plus for starters, he's 8th. Now, the rest of the list is really good. It's like Scooball and Crochet and, it's Hunter Green. But then you look at his K, he's got an 8% swinging strike. And that's the number I care about, right? Like, that's the number that we find meaningful and is going to translate into something. And I think he will be good. And he probably will be a good strikeout pitcher someday. But there's sequencing and location issues, all that. So, right.
I have the same problem, because to me it always ends up about what are the results. Like you could have guys that have incredible looking numbers and StatCast pages, and it looks tremendous on paper, and then you look at the record and they're 1-3 with a 5.06 ERA. It's like I always struggle with that piece too, Chris, like you were saying before. Like I don't know how much credence to put into some of the numbers and the stats that are coming up, when the stats that I really need are wins and saves and ERA and Ks. Like that's the part that I always struggle with as a fantasy player.
But Mike, I gotta push back on something you just said. Why are you looking at ERA? What are you doing? Even spending a second looking at a pitcher's ERA?
Because it's a statistic that we have to have, and that's why.
Right, but I understand that that is part of, like, it's a roto category, right? So obviously it's important. But I guess my argument against even looking at it is it really doesn't tell us anything about the pitcher moving forward, right?
Agreed.
Like that could have a 6 ERA, but their home run to fly ball is 30%, or they have a 400 batting average in balls in play. So like that stuff I feel like is going to get me to where I need, where I can evaluate a pitcher for moving forward.
Totally agree. And that's the predicament that I find myself in a lot of the times, is that you have somebody that has a real statistic that we have to keep track of versus an xERA or versus a Sierra, and that doesn't do anything for me because it's not a statistic that we keep track of. Now, I do have to look at that because you're right. There's a predictive part of that is really important in looking at what a guy's results may be, but I also have to consider what a guy's results actually are. And that's, I think, a really difficult proposition for a lot of people. You guys are high line players and know that better than I do. It's a constant struggle for me in my mind.
All right. We'll save another episode for that. We'll get in more into the weeds of that stuff. But for now, we got to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be back with some beat writer articles, and don't miss our waiver wire pickup segment. So stay tuned. All right, we are back. So we're going to talk about a couple beat writer articles that we found this past week. Like I've said before, it's really hard to get a beat writer on every week. I know that's we try to, but I think it's more realistic every other week that we find one. But in those weeks that we don't, we would like to kind of pick out some articles that we find interesting. And one of them that I found this week was by Brian Hoke, who's been on the show before. He's the Yankees beat writer for MLB.com. And his article was entitled Ben Rice, a real quote unquote hitter out of the leadoff spot for the Yankees. I don't know why he put quotes around that, but anyway, the quote that I wanted to point out that I found interesting says, quote, Rice garnered attention from the coaching staff this spring, both for his brimming confidence and a bulked up frame. Officially listed as 6'2" and 220 pounds, Rice said he added about 10 pounds dating back to last June, crediting an improved diet that focused heavily on chicken and naturally rice. So the chicken and rice diet, maybe this is the new thing to catch on because apparently it's working for Ben Rice. I mean, he is absolutely crushing early on this season. I mean, if you look at any hard hit, exit velocity, barrel leaderboard, he is right there near the top, hitting near the top of the Yankees lineup. So, there was this buzz in the offseason, right? Or particularly in spring training about how he was in the best shape of his life. Now we find out it's chicken and rice. And then he did follow that up with a great spring training. Oftentimes we see these guys, they get all this buzz and then they don't do anything. CES for me was the big example this year. Like I bought into CES in some of my final drafts because of what he did in spring training, and look at where that went. But Ben Rice has been the opposite. He's panned out. So my question, and I'll open this up to any of you guys, how much do you factor that in, that spring training buzz and their performance as well? How much do you factor that in to your evaluation process?
For spring training buzz, personally, I don't, but I think it's a crapshoot sometimes. Just, someone does this and it works, and someone does that and it works then, but it doesn't work in the season. That being said, I know how much the team really loves Ben Rice. They've been scouting him for years. They were sneakily drafting him later than they should have because they knew that nobody knew about him. I was reading another article about the history about how they got Ben Rice, and it was actually pretty fascinating. But at the end of the day, they knew what they got with him. He's a hard-hitting, hard-working guy who will listen to coaches, who will do what he needs to do in the off seasons to make himself a better player. His minor league track record, it's huge. It's successful. He's got a K rate around 20% with a walk rate, not just a little bit lower. He's a good guy. And they call him like a Yankee. He is a Yankee. So I think that buzz is huge, and I think it's going to carry over. Whether or not he continues on this torrid pace, I don't know. But I think the team likes him enough to give him enough of a leeway to make sure that he can stick.
Mm-hmm. It's going to get very interesting with him when Stanton. I mean, I know this is a big if. We know Stanton's track record, but assuming Stanton does come back, let's say in a month or two, there's going to be a logjam there, but at DH, first base with Goldschmidt. And I know they want to get Grisham in there now too. He's playing really well, so it's going to be interesting how that plays out. But if Ben Rice keeps hitting like this, you cannot take him out of the lineup. And he's like the perfect guy to hit in front of Aaron Judge because, people don't want to face Judge with someone on base. And Ben Rice has great plate discipline. And if, someone's grooving a fastball to him because they don't want to put him on base, then he's going to put it out. So, I think he's been a great find for the Yankees. The chicken and rice thing, I find interesting. It's such a simple meal, right? He wasn't doing creative. Well, maybe he was. I don't know. But, just chicken and rice diet. The
chickens were probably taking steroids, though.
That's probably true.
Yeah, probably all the chickens we eat. Actually, one thing, I was talking about this with somebody today about chicken. Can I just say something about chicken before we get back to baseball? Is that allowed?
Of course, if you're not putting it in your hair, that's okay. Yeah.
No, that's next. I do weird stuff. So there's gonna be a week. I'm like, guys, there's this new great thing for you to regrow your hair. Chicken grease, right? But, I was talking about this actually with our buddy Nathan. How is it? Everything that we buy nowadays has become more expensive, like within the past few years, right? Like there's been crazy inflation on everything. You can't even get Arizona iced tea anymore for 99 cents. The one thing that has not been impacted by inflation is rotisserie chicken, man. Mm-hmm. How can I go to the supermarket and get a beautiful, juicy chicken fresh out of the oven for $6.99? I'd love to understand what are the economics.
I get it for $5.99 here.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, $6.99.
That's what I'm saying.
York, right? $5.99 anywhere else. Like, how does that work economically? So I just, this is my PSA. This will probably be the most meaningful thing you'll get from this podcast. If you're on a budget, you're trying to feed, a family, right? Get a rotisserie chicken with some rice, maybe some broccoli on the side. That is probably the most plus EV meal that you can make in the year 2025. Less than $10.
Totally agree.
Right? I mean, it's like a life hack that people need to know about.
Because then what you can do is this. This is what we did this week. In another attempt to save money, because I have a daughter that's going to college, it's going to cost me like $100,000 a year, it seems like. We took the carcass of the rotisserie chicken and put it in the crock pot with broth and everything,
Absolutely.
and then made a chicken noodle soup essentially for the week, and have a mass of it for the rest of the week. It costs $6 for the chicken, and the rest of it costs nothing.
Bro, it's crazy. You would do so much with it. You want to make tacos. You want to put it in a casserole. It's so versatile. So listen, that is the one thing I felt like was important to say today. Go get your rotisserie chicken. Let's focus on our next article. Nothing involving chicken in this one. We're looking at Jonathan Aranda of the Tampa Bay Rays. Another guy kind of like in that Ben Rice category, a dude that, one of these lefty power hitting sluggers that was going in late draft season, probably in like the 300 range. And I mean, last year, all of the hard hit metrics looked good. It was just a matter of, are the Rays going to Ray, right? Are they going to give him playing time? And is he going to actually deliver on that? Is he going to have, are his defensive liabilities going to interfere with him getting full run? Hasn't mattered. I mean, dude has just been crushing. What I want to understand, I looked up his rostership percentage on Yahoo. 27%. 27% for Jonathan Aranda. I don't know where he is on the player radar right now, but every time I look up, he's, getting a double, getting a home run. Like, that's obscene. Go, if you're listening to this, he's available in your league. Go pick him up. This article here about Aranda was saying that the title of it is Aranda's OPS is second only to reigning AL MVP Aaron Judge. And this was by Adam Berry of MLB.com. He talked in the article about what Aranda did during the offseason, working on his defense. Also talked about having more of an on-the-attack mentality at the plate this year, which has been borne out in the early going here. His in-zone swing percentage has increased 8 points compared to last year. So when he's getting a pitch to hit, he's taking advantage. Mm-hmm. I know, Dave, you were big on Aranda this offseason. We joked about it, how much
Yeah.
you were in on him, especially with the move to Steinbrenner Field. So let me toss this to Michael, and you're free to take a victory lap, Dave. But Michael, is there anything about Aranda maybe under the hood that you look at and you're like, I don't know if this is sustainable, or is my man Dave just going to the moon with this?
Well, I guess I'm going with him.
All right.
Yeah, I guess he can be Neil Armstrong. I'll just take the pictures, I suppose. But, but I've been on him too. And I just he's another guy. You look at him in double A and triple A his first times through, and he's posting 162, 142, 165 kind of WRC pluses at those levels. He could always hit. And the contact quality was really good, like you said, Chris, last year. 16.5% barrel rate, but his process stuff didn't look great. And a metric I started using more, shout out Rob DiPietro and also to Robert Orr, who created it, but is the Seeger, which kind of is I guess, I don't know if this is a compliment or insult. It's like a stuff plus for hitters, and that or swing decisions anyway. And it combines all these different elements of what they're doing. Last year he was 10th percentile. And this year I think he's up to 97. He's 97th percentile in Seeger. He's one of the best in terms of swinging at the right pitches and letting the pitches he can't hit go by. He's one of the best in the league right now. He's putting the ball in the air a little more. That was always kind of a question of could he get to all his power because the fly ball rate wasn't that high. But, he's kind of raised that 6%. I actually think that he's got a 15% home run to fly ball. That might be low for how hard he hits the ball. In terms of risks or issues, his zone contact is down a little bit, and he's whiffing against secondaries a little more than he was against breakers and off-speed pitches, a little more than he was last year, but not a crazy rate. That's actually an issue I have with Rice. He doesn't hit secondaries. He has a 54% whiff rate against breaking pitches. You go to a Savant and you just look at the pitch type part and you scroll down. He's hitting 111 against sliders. He's hitting 0 against sweepers, 0 against curveballs. It's not like a lot of pitches, but he's faced 20, 30, 40 of these, And the whiff rate
is a little bit of a yellow flag there.
Yeah, it's a small sample.
Figured out yet.
For sure, it's a small sample. But he didn't hit him last year either. So it's something to just watch with him, I think. Aranda's killing that stuff. He's got a 1,200 slug versus breaking pitches. And the park is obviously great. So I like him. There's the platoon issue. He's a defensive liability probably, so there's that issue. But I think this is a good hitter. But as with anything this early on, I wouldn't want to say, well, this is just what he is now, because this is one of the best hitters in the league. I don't think he's that, but I have a few shares. I wish I had more,
Yeah, I have 0. I feel naked sometimes. I feel naked. I really do. Just totally exposed. I'm just, it doesn't I could just be walking around and I just no, I have no Jonathan Aranda, and it feels like I have no clothes on. Totally. It's a weird thing. But let me tell you, Jonathan Aranda, actually, I got to correct myself. When I was making this outline, he was 27%. He's gone up quite a bit since I checked. He's at 46%. Which I think is for a 12-teamer, we're getting there, right? I think when it's all said and done, this is someone, because of the platoon issue, he's not an everyday player, so he's not 100% rostership type guy, but he should be in that 70% range. And just also wanted to point out Ben Rice is at 62% on Yahoo. Again, I think if he's available, even in a 10-teamer, I think given that he's hitting at the top of the lineup, he's definitely worth a pickup. Another sneaky thing is there's not a lot of left-handers in the American League, so these guys who are considered strict platoon hitters, even though Rice has started against some lefties. They're not as impacted by that because they're just facing a lot more right-handed pitchers. So that's an aside. We're gonna move on to our next segment, and this is Michael's wheelhouse. I think he's got several wheelhouses, but this is kind of where he focuses on for Rotoballer is waiver wires, and we're gonna go through some names and look at give you at least one player. And we'll vary. So I think Michael and I are going to focus on a 15-team pickup, and Dave and Mike are going to identify a 12-team pickup. Just so some people play in different formats, and we want to try to cater as much as we can to people in different league sizes. So let's start with, I'm going to give this to Dave, the first one here. Give us your player that you think is someone less than 50% rostered. That's the one, the caveat here. So less than 50% rostered in 12 teamers. Dave, give it to us.
All right, I'm gonna make this quick because he's a good player, but it's Sean Murphy, and now that he's back, I think his rostership will go up, but in the meantime, it's not. But the one thing that really opened my eyes to him, no pun intended, was the fact that he was recently diagnosed with astigmatism. So because of that, he had never had glasses before. But now that he has them, he just started when he came back, had glasses on for the first time. So that gets rid of the blurriness. That gets rid of his inability to focus on the ball. And I think that's why he's come in and started mashing. So for the simple fact that he can see now, I think I think he's gonna continue. I don't think he'll be on this torrid pace, but he's gonna be someone maybe closer to the way he was a few years ago when he broke out. So wait. I'm gonna ride the hot wave with him.
Wait. So you're saying that seeing the ball is helpful when playing baseball?
Yeah,
this is crazy.
Okay, yeah, this is revolutionary. I know.
You're dropping the knowledge here, man.
Yeah,
it's wild. No, I think wasn't it like Enrique Hernandez, the same thing last year? I think he got his vision corrected. Tommy Pham a couple years ago, and then these guys started playing better. Like what a concept,
right?
But yeah, Murphy is someone. I mean, 2 years ago, guy had a 130 WRC plus with 21 home runs from the catcher position, with good counting stats. So this is a guy I was on. I kind of backed off when he got the injury, but man, I think he's kind of getting back to the player that he was after an off 2024. What about you, Mike? Who's your pickup for this week? Mike Carter.
I think he's muted.
All right, we'll go to you, Michael. Oh, okay. Michael Carter, go ahead.
I was confused on the Michaels there. A guy that I'm really interested in right now is Harrison Bader with the injury to Matt Wallner in Minnesota. Bader is really kind of hitting pretty well. I don't know if anybody's been really paying attention. He had 3 hits on Monday. He had 2 hits last night, including RBIs in both of those games. Even stole the base this week as well. Looks like he's going to have some runway to having some playing time there. And he's only 31% rostered right now. And I'm sure that number is going to go up. If you look at Minnesota's lineup, I know he's hitting towards the bottom of it right now. I don't know how long that's going to last. Their lineup is kind of a weird one right now. I mean, Ty France is batting cleanup. So I think Bader could actually move up in that lineup, but he's had starts in left field of 4 games in a row now. So I think he's a guy that you might want to look at, especially if you're looking for some cheap speed and a little bit of power as well. So that's a guy that I think is going to play quite a bit for Minnesota here, at least in the next couple of weeks while Wallner is out.
All right, Harrison Bader is Mike's pickup. We'll go to Michael Cicchini. Who do you got now? This is a 15-team pickup.
Okay, so I thought I thought I was doing a 12s, but I have 2, so I have one that'll work for each.
Okay, perfect.
In 12s, I noticed Jock Peterson was only 43% rostered on Yahoo, and it's kind of even though he's not produced, it's similar to the Aranda profile, I think, in a daily moves league, because a lot of his metrics look very similar. I can't really quite figure out what is going on with him. he's making some worse swing decisions, but you know, yeah, even the Seager was almost identical. I just think that his ground ball rate isn't real. It's almost 60%. That's like 20% up from last year. So I think Peterson will kind of come around. I think he's a good hitter, and I think that will resolve in time unless there's an injury we don't know about. For 15s, I really like JT Ginn with the Athletics. I watched his start, his first start that he made, and he just, I mean, even though he throws a lot of sinkers, he misses bats. He has good velocity. His velocity is up about 2 miles an hour. It was pretty middling last year. It was 92.2 was the average fastball. Even with that, he had a 12.4% swinging strike. That'll play, especially in a 15. And now it's up to 94 and a half. And I just think, I don't know, the robots don't love him. His model scores are not great, although his location his location plus is 110. And sometimes if you're sequencing well and if you're locating well, that works. And that was true last year. And I think that's part of how he got to the whiffs that he was getting. So yeah, I thought he should have made the rotation out of camp, and maybe the Joey Estes fascination has finally faded for them, but we'll see. Yeah, so I like JT again. I think he's solid.
Okay. I know he was a popular pickup this week in main events, so we'll see. I do worry about that ballpark, though. The ballpark is playing a lot. Talked about that this offseason, how
It's a big ground ball guy, though.
okay, yeah,
55,
maybe you can mitigate that. Yep.
50%. I mean, yeah, the sinkers. I mean, he's heavy sinker, so like, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. The park is scary.
Yeah, but definitely worth. I think definitely worth a pickup based on the increased velocity, and he flashed a little bit last year too. So yeah, with you on Ginn. I'm gonna go with another pitcher, and that's Ryan Gusto. And this is I didn't even know who this guy was a few weeks ago. I remember one week I was looking, I was down bad. I was down real bad. And I had no my ninth pitcher was just like not a good option. And I started looking at like a middle reliever who I could just plug in there and maybe like protect my ratios in my main event. And I remember I came across Gusto. He was showing some good skills, and then the Astros put him into the rotation first. They gave him a start last week. I think he went a little over 4 innings, and he flashed the same stuff. The skills were really good. I don't know if he's going to be stay in the rotation. I know McCullers is on his way back, so we'll see what happens when he comes back. But I mean, if you just like all of the boxes that I look at, like he's getting swing and miss with a 16% swinging strike rate, CSW above 33%, in zone contact 75%. So those are like big things that I look at when evaluating a pitcher. And if we even go to Stuff Plus, 107 Stuff Plus with a 109 pitching plus. Overall pitching bot is 64, which 50 is average. So I think Ryan Gusto is someone who, at least to pick up, if you're in a super deep league, an AL only or a 15 team, just to see, because I think if he does get run in the rotation, maybe it's, something else could happen to another one of their pitchers. I think we could see something there with him. So just someone to really keep tabs on as a guy who could give you some good innings here. So we are going to take a quick break. We are going to transition away from baseball. We're going to do our mental health minute before we wrap up today's episode, but we will be right back. All right, we are back for our expanded mental health minute. So we're going to spend about the next 10 minutes talking about a mental health related topic. And I mean, this topic could be mental health, physical health. But my question to all of you is, what are some habits, and they could be small habits, right? They don't have to be like things that take you an hour to do. Just maybe, just one little thing that you have found that incorporating into your daily routine has led to improved overall wellness for you. So I'm going to pass this first to our guest, Michael. So tell us, what habits have you incorporated into your day that you found helpful?
Well, while we were talking, I just ordered 17 rotisserie chickens
There
from
it is. There it is, baby.
the
Smart man.
store and a bunch of rice cups. That's the other thing you get cheap. Or you ever
Yeah.
see those rice cups? They come in like 2 packs usually, and I think it's like $2.50. You get
100%. Yep.
they're $1 each or something. Yeah, those are good. Okay, so man, there are a couple things. So there's a couple things. I used to really try to actively, for various reasons, try to practice kind of a mindfulness um, kind of ethos or what have you. So, and that's still, it's not as overt. I'm not trying to or thinking about it as much, but when I do things, I try to be present in what I'm doing a little more. So yeah, I think that it's of course, if there's something terrible going on, then you kind of want to, maybe it doesn't always work, but
Mhm.
there's that. And then the other thing is that, so I'm a big podcast listener, and I got really good at this in my former work, where I would have something going where people were talking, usually sports related or sports talk or fantasy. And I would just have it going all day, and I'd be sitting there trying to think and write and process information and do things. And you get really good at it with like anything with practice, but it can be a little much. Like if you told someone, yeah, there's voices in my head all the time, like 100 years ago, you get electroshock therapy 100 years ago, they put you in an institution for that. So what I've tried to do is kind of shift into a little more music,
Mhm.
and especially late in the day or at night before I go to bed, I try to listen to something that's kind of chill, peaceful. So recently I've been listening to a lot of like Brian Eno. He kind of
You mean Brian Eno Saris? That's what you mean?
I always want to ask him if he's named after Brian Eno, the musician.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of invented ambient music. I mean, he didn't necessarily, but his first record that was all instrumental was called Ambient One: Music for Airports, and from that came kind of the title of the genre that followed. And it's great stuff. And then he did a record. It's more of a pop record, but it's called Wrong Way Up. He did it with John Cale, who co-founded the Velvet Underground, and it's really peaceful. Like it's a little busier than the ambient stuff, but there's a song called The River that's very like you can just zen out to. So I've been trying to kind of incorporate a bit more music and less voices in my brain. So.
Okay, less voices in your brain. We'll take that. No, I think that is. I kind of have tried to shift a little bit in that way as well. I, like you, and I love podcasts, and it's been a great thing for me. Like not only baseball stuff, but just learning, and I work from home, so like it just gets a little stale sometimes. So to have a podcast on the background, but when we're consuming all of the time, and have that constant stimulation, there's a point where that becomes, I think, a little detrimental. So, switching to music, like you said, you're doing, even silence once in a while. I think there's research that shows the benefits of that.
No.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, sometimes that can be scary, right? Because then you have to sit with your own thoughts,
Yeah.
and that can, depending on how they are that day, that could be a little difficult. But I think probably a good thing to do once in a while. So, but anyway, thank you for sharing that, Michael. I'm gonna kick it to Michael Carter. What about you, man? What are some habits or a habit that you have tried to incorporate?
I start off with Wordle every day.
Okay.
I have a 99% success rate on Wordle. I had my highest score ever days in a row was 165. I'm currently at 106 right now. So I'm trying to capture that magic again. But it's the first thing I do every day when I wake up. But that's not the most important thing. the most important thing that I do on a daily basis for me is you guys know probably more than just about anybody outside of my family how busy I am. And between my first job, my primary job being the principal at the school, also then doing tutoring on the weekend, coaching the baseball team, helping Jack's baseball team out, I got a lot kind of going on, especially in April and May. And I have to remind myself, one of the things that I do as a hobby, as a side hustle and just for fun is I write about bullpens. And you guys, we joke about it every week about how much of an exercise and futility that can be sometimes. But what I really think about in terms of my day is what is the highest leverage thing that I can do today to be impactful upon my day? Now, some people would look at it and say, oh, you went to work for 8 hours, blah, 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 whatever. No, I look at it a little bit differently than that. In a day where there's 8 different things that could go on, what are the 2 or 3 most important things that I need to do today as priorities? And what can kind of shift to another day, another time, whatever it might be? And so that kind of dictates to me where I'm at in terms of how I am dictating to myself how to get through my day. There are days that I've had like 3 days this week where I left the house before 7 and wasn't home until 8 o'clock at night. Those are really, really long days. So you kind of have to steel yourself up for that. But at the same time, I also look at that and say, what's the most highest leverage, similar to how I write about bullpens, what's the highest leverage thing that I can do today to make my day feel successful and get the point across of what it is that I need to be doing on that given day.
I love that. Yeah. Just really looking at the most impactful thing. I think I fail to do that sometimes. Like I have like a to-do list that is just always, I'm just always adding to it. And sometimes I make the mistake, like I just let it get too long and then I like don't know where to start. I think that's a really important thing to really take a step back and look at, okay, what is it? What's going to make the most impact? And what's going to give me that kind of downstream effect. If I do this, then these things will become easier.
Exactly.
Yep. Love that. Dave, you're back. I got to say, so you were frozen on the screen. You had this like very serious, like you were about to kill somebody, but it was kind of cool. Like it was like rugged Dave, frozen on the screen. But
it's what I do for my
us.
mental well-being. I just practice that badass look and good things happen apparently.
All right, Dave, what about you, man? What are you doing? What's a habit that you've incorporated into your daily routine?
For me, it's just basically eating healthy. I find that when I eat healthy, I feel better. I feel better throughout the day. I feel better physically, mentally. And, if I indulge every now and then, I feel like I don't feel the greatest afterwards. I don't know about you guys, but I just don't feel great. So I try to do my best to make sure I'm eating healthy so that I feel close to 100%. I drink my coffee every day and I just daily exercise and walking just to keep moving. So combining all of those things together, it's just something that helps me keep going and I feel good.
Give me one thing, because like eating healthy, like I could tell anybody, eat healthy, right? Give me one thing that you like has become kind of a staple of your diet that you would recommend, like incorporate this and it really does make a difference.
Honestly, I have a protein smoothie every morning. Like
Okay.
I'll go to the gym and then I'll have that for breakfast. So like
Mhm.
that with just some frozen fruits and powders and peanut butter, stuff like that. Like healthy, natural stuff inside.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
So you're trying to get into, does Jason Statham have any movies coming up that you're going to be a stunt double in?
Not that I know of, but I am available, Jason, if you're out there.
Dude, you are hit like you just, I mean, it makes sense. You got to bulk up, right? Like I think you could really, that could be your other side gig besides
chicken and rice.
Yeah.
I'll do the Ben Rice diet. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we got to get out of here, but I'll give you quickly my thing. What I've been trying to do, and this has been more within like the past month or so, and I've noticed a difference, is focusing on getting early morning sunlight. Some days I would get up and I work from home, so I'm not leaving the house first thing in the morning. and I would make the mistake of just like, doing stuff around the house, getting the kids ready, myself getting ready, and just going straight into work without ever going outside. And that was a kind of crappy habit. And my sleep had been kind of off. And I think during that time, and I think a big reason for that is I wasn't getting out and kind of resetting that circadian rhythm. Your body has to see that natural sunlight to like for it to realize, okay, now is, now is the time to be awake. And everything kind of flows from that, and your sleep does get impacted by that. So what I try to do now within the first hour of when I'm awake, just try to get outside for a few minutes and again set that circadian rhythm, and it helps you physically. I mean, there's been more research about this lately, about the benefits of that, the physical benefits, the mental benefits, and if it's helping your sleep, it's one of the highest impact things you could do, right? Because if you're sleeping well, everything is gonna follow from that. So that is my habit for the week, but we are going to get out of here. But before we do that, just want to thank Michael for joining us today. This was great. Really enjoyed having you on. If you could just tell our listeners where they can find you on social media and where they could find your work.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. This was a pleasure for sure. Right. So I write for Rotoballer. Right now, what I'm doing is a weekly. I am kind of like the negative guy. I'm the cynic. I'm supposed to bring everybody back to earth, which is
You and Dave would get along really well.
This is something it's a natural fit. That's kind of why I called the Substack Out of Options. I have a little of a, it's self-deprecating too. It's like if you're reading this, but anyway, Substack, my name, Michael Cicchini. It's called Out of Options. You can just search that. So for Rotoballer, I write a waiver wire, let's be more reasonable article, kind of the negative view of the popular guys getting proposed for that week. And then on the Substack, I do kind of a more wide ranging, what's interesting to me. 95% of that is fantasy. I did write one that's more general about the business side and owners who don't spend and et cetera. So that's a very long thing I won't get into. But yeah, on Twitter, I am at Zeitgeist1, Zeittheist1. I just realized that's almost as bad as my last name.
I was going to say it earlier, to be honest, and I'm like, forget it. I'll just let them do it.
It's okay. You don't have to. It's like Zeitgeist, except I changed it to H because it's an old joke I have with a friend of mine. We were going to write a movie about anyway. So, and it's the same on Blue Sky, except there's no number. Anyway, Zeitgeist.bsky.social. Yeah. Anyway, I'm on both of those. Thanks.
Sounds good. Yeah. Check out Michael's work. And check us out on Twitter. Our podcast account is at Fantasy Bee Beat. We're going to be posting, our episodes there and beat writer articles. So give us a follow and give us a rating review if you'd be so kind. We'll be back next week with somebody. Mike is working on it, and we'll hopefully have a beat writer. I was thinking, what let's just get this out of the way, because we were talking. We always like text later about what the name of the episode should be. I was thinking, don't chicken out on Ben Rice. Is that like?
Don't chicken out on Cicchini.
Don't chicken out on Cicchini. Okay. All right. Dave, give us one before we get out of here.
No, I like the chicken.
And you're muted. Way to just be way to end it. All right. We'll talk more offline, but we will be back next week. For Dave Funnel, for Mike Carter, I'm Chris Torres. Thank you so much for listening to the Fantasy Baseball Beat.